Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Dana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mishnapad Paramahansa Parivajaka Ashtoto the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayo Mishnapad Paramahansa Parivajaka Ashtoto the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavism Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Well, where do we end? I think I remember doing 45. Yeah, we definitely didn't do, yeah. All right. Yeah, we'll do 46 and 47. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 25th day of January, 2021 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are still in chapter 6 entitled Dhyana Yoga. And we're on text number 46 at the top of page 299. Yeah. Tapasvibhyo diko yogi Jnanibhyo pi matodikaha Karmibhyaschadiko yogi Tasmad yogi bhavarjana. All right, I think we'll do 298, do text 45, just to make sure, because I'm not 100% sure. Text 45, 298. Prayatna jatamanastu yogi sangshuddha kilbisha aneka janma samsiddhas tato yati param gatim. Prayatna jatamanastu Yogi Sangshuddha Kilbishaha Anek Janma Sangshidhas Tato Yati Param Gatim Prayatna Jitamanastu Yogi Sangshuddha Kilbishaha Anek Janma Sangshidhas Tato Yati Param Gatim Prayatnat Yatamanastu Yogi Sangshuddha Kilbishaha Anek Janma Sangsiddhas Tato Yati Param Gatim Prayatnat Yatamanastu Yogi Sangshuddha Kilbishaha Anek Janma Sangsiddhas Tato Yati Param Gatim. Prayatnat, by rigid practice, Yatamanaha, endeavoring to, and Yogi, such a transcendentalist, Sangshuddha, washed off, Kilbishaha, all of whose sins, Aneka, after many, many Janma births, Sangsiddhaha, having achieved perfection, Tataha, thereafter, Yati, attains, Param, the highest, Gatim, destination. Translation. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. Purport. A person born in a particularly righteous, aristocratic, or sacred family becomes conscious of his favorable condition for executing yoga practice. With determination, therefore, he begins his unfinished task, and thus he completely cleanses himself of all material contaminations. When he is finally free from all contaminations, he attains the supreme perfection, Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the perfect stage of being freed of all contaminations. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7:28. I'll say, you say, Yesham tundakatam papam Jananam punyakarmanam Te dvandamohani mukta Bhajante mam jadavrataha. After many, many births of executing pious activities, when one is completely freed from all contamination and from all illusory dualities, one becomes engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Shri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this is by way of Krishna is explaining now the fate of an unsuccessful yogi who is unsuccessful. This beginning in text 42, he's unsuccessful after a long practice of yoga. You notice there was the distinction. Those who fall away after a short time, they get one of the other births. He gets a birth in an aristocratic family or in a pure Brahman family, something like that. Shuchinam Shimatam Ge. But if one says after a long practice of yoga, then he has he has more auspicious birth. He takes birth in a family of transcendentalists who are great in wisdom. Certainly it's rare in this world. On taking such a birth, he revives his divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. Son of Kunti. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. And then the verse we read today. And when the yogi engaged himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So, even here, there's many, many births. There's many, many births. So, what is being described, this is, of course, he's talking still about the Ashtanga Yogi, not specifically Bhakti Yogi. But Ashtanga Yoga has different varieties. This is Ashtanga Yoga in the service of bhakti. Because Krishna said, I am the supreme goal. Right? That's one of his instructions, make me the matparaha. There's no question that the meditation is on Krishna, and therefore it's bhakti ultimately. But the method is such that even if you fall down after a long time of practicing yoga, you make some significant advancement. Still, after many, many births, aneka janma means many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So that's still a little bit discouraging for Arjuna, In other words, many, many births, you have to attain perfection. So now these last two verses, especially the last verse, he's going to be encouraging Arjuna, because he's going to bring it all the way back home to just, if you're already meditating on me, forget everything I said. If you're fully conscious of me already, you don't have to go to the forest, you don't have to practice all these restrictions. But it means that you've already achieved the essence of those, which is fixing the mind on Krishna and being completely purified. So that's what's going on here. And Prabhupada quotes this verse, which he often quoted, if you recall from we will learn in the end of the 7th chapter, that to practice Krishna consciousness with a firm vow, and this is directly related to what we do, antagatam papam, that no sinful activities. You can't be performing sinful activities and at the same time expect to advance in any kind of yoga. So when it's free, antagatam papam, your sins are gone, janam punya karmanam, and you're performing pious activities. Now in this case, pious activities means activities of devotion. Then you can be liberated from the delusion of duality, which is what the previous verse was about in the 7th chapter. What is that delusion of duality? This relates to what is described in the 11th canto, the source of fear. Bhayam dvitiya vinabesha daksyad. Dvitiya means the second thing. It means the duality of this material world, the pleasure and pain, but it means mostly absorption in the material energy rather than the spiritual energy. You see? That also pertains here. So that's the source. Our forgetting Krishna and absorption in material life is the source of all of our sense of duality. This is pleasurable, this is painful, heat and cold, I like her, she doesn't, all these dualities, which is ultimately a delusion, is due to our detaching ourselves from Krishna, forgetting Krishna. So one is free of those, nirmukta, if one practices devotional service and is free of all sinful activities and is performing service to Krishna with great determination, dridhavrata. So it's, again, Prabhupada brings it back to the bhakti and the purport as usual. And so now, these last two verses you'll see will bring it back to the emphasis, which is on pure bhakti yoga. Tapisvibhyo diko yogi Jnanibhyo pimanodikaha Karmibhyas chadiko yogi Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. Purport. When we speak of yoga, we refer to linking our consciousness with the supreme absolute truth. Such a process is named differently by various practitioners in terms of the particular method adopted. When the linking process is predominantly in fruitive activity, it is called karma yoga. When it is predominantly empirical, it is called jnana yoga. And when it is predominantly in a devotional relationship with the Supreme Lord, it is called bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga, or Krishna consciousness, is the ultimate perfection of all yogas, as will be explained in the next verse. The Lord has confirmed herein the superiority of yoga, but he has not mentioned that it is better than bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is full spiritual knowledge, and therefore nothing can excel it. Asceticism without self-knowledge is imperfect. Empiric knowledge without surrender to the Supreme Lord is also imperfect. And fruitive work without Krishna consciousness is a waste of time. Therefore, the most highly praised form of yoga performance mentioned here is bhakti yoga. And this is still more clearly explained in the next verse. So he's winding it up. And this is like what, the whole Bhagavad Gita is like this. There's an explanation of karma yoga. And even if you recall in chapter 3, it was all about
okay, offer what you have to the demigods, and they'll supply your necessities in the cycle. Everyone will be happy. He mentions that in the 3rd chapter. Later in the 7th chapter, the 9th chapter, he derides the worship of the demigods, especially in the 9th chapter. But it's a good beginning, because it's based on sacrifice. And if you know the real person to whom everything should be sacrificed, Vishnu, then it's going to lead you to bhakti. But the motive is still tinged with a material motive, selfish motive. I want to go to heaven, therefore I worship this God, so forth, But if you really understand what yajna means, yajna is another name for Vishnu, right? And yajna means sacrifice or Vishnu, meaning that all sacrifices ultimately should be done for the pleasure of Vishnu. So it brings you within that realm. And then the Jnana Yogi, generally they're analyzing, not this, the absolute is not this, it's ultimately spirit. I'm spirit, therefore I'm part of the absolute truth. It can lead to impersonalism, unless one is properly guided. And of course, Dhyana Yoga, there's also a pitfall there, and that is that becoming enamored of the siddhis that you develop. You become very powerful, you live a long time, and we've seen the yogis who come to the West, they want to monetize it. Now that they've got this power, now all I have to do is be able to do these asanas nicely, and I'll get a following in New York City and make some money. It's easy to become corrupted like that. What to speak of having a power to get whatever you want. When I read that, I immediately thought of Fort Knox. Let me just get my hand into Fort. This is when I was a kid. Oh, that city is quite amazing. And of course, we've had big yogis. They have millions of followers in India. They produce a little ash. They produce something, a little magic. Oh, he must be Vishnu. This is what. So there's a great temptation to misuse those powers if you're not also purifying your heart at the same time. See the danger of getting the powers and the fame without the purification of heart. It becomes very tempting to use that and to deviate. So the best yogi is a bhakta, and the best yogi is bhakti yoga, which we'll learn in the next verse. Okay, yoginam, ready? Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yuktamo mataha. And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Purport. The word bhajate is significant here. Bhajate has its root in the word bhaj, which is used when there is need of service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as bhaj. Worship means to adore, or to show respect and honor to the worthy one. But service with love and faith is especially meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can avoid worshipping a respectable man or demigod, and may be called discourteous, but one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. Every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus every living entity is intended to serve the Supreme Lord by his own constitution. Failing to do this, he falls down. The Bhagavatam 11.5.3 confirms this as follows. I'll say, you say, Yesham Purusham Sakshad Atma Prabhavamishwaram Nabhajanta Bhajananti Sthana Brashta Patantyadaha. Anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty unto the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. In this verse also the word bhajanti is used. Therefore bhajanti is applicable to the Supreme Lord only, whereas the word worship can be applied to demigods or to any other common living entity. Now, Prabhupada elsewhere, I don't think he mentioned it here, that the root, bhaj, is also the root of the word bhakti. Yeah. The word avajananti used in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam is also found in the Bhagavad Gita. Avajananti mamudha. This is the 9th chapter. Only the fools and rascals deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. Such fools take it upon themselves to write commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita without an attitude of service to the Lord. Consequently, they cannot properly distinguish between the word bhajanti and the word worship. The culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All other yogas are progressions toward the destination of bhakti yoga. From the beginning of karma yoga to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma yoga without fruit of results is the beginning of this path. When karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, this stage is called jnana yoga. When jnana yoga increases in meditation on the super soul by different physical processes, and the mind is on him, it is called ashtanga yoga. And when one surpasses the ashtanga yoga and comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is called bhakti yoga, the culmination. Factually, bhakti yoga is the ultimate goal. But to analyze bhakti yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. The yogi who is progressive is therefore on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name. Karma yogi, jnana yogi, or dhyana yogi, raja yogi, hatha yogi, etc. If one is fortunate enough to come to the point of bhakti yoga, it is to be understood that he has surpassed all other yogas. Therefore, to become Krishna conscious is the highest stage of yoga, just as when we speak of the Himalayan, we refer to the world's highest mountains, of which the highest peak, Mount Everest, is considered to be the culmination. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of bhakti yoga to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shyama Sundar, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and whose body is flower-garlanded. Illuminating all sides is his gorgeous luster, which is called the Brahma Jyoti. He incarnates in different forms such as Ram, Nrsimha, Varaha, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he descends like a human being as the son of Mother Yashoda, and he is known as Krishna, Govinda, and Vasudeva. He is the perfect child, husband, friend, and master, and he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. This stage of highest perfection in yoga can be attained only by bhakti yoga, as is confirmed in all Vedic literature. Also, you say, Yasya deve para bhaktir, yata deve tata gurau, tasyaite katitaya tha, prakashante mahatmanaha. Only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Shvetashvatar Upanishad 6.23. Bhaktir asya bhajanam tad iha mutro bhadi nairasyen amushmin manak kalpanam etad eva naishkarmyam. Bhakti means devotional service to the Lord, which is free from desire for material profit, either in this life or in the next. Devoid of such inclinations, one should fully absorb the mind in the Supreme. That is the purpose of Naishkarmya. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1.15. These are some of the means for performance of bhakti, or Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of the yoga system. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of dhyana yoga. So, this last verse and purport are very rich. And the previous verse is also important, 46. Yogi is greater than ascetic, greater than Persis, greater than the fruit of worker, therefore Arjuna in all circumstances be a yogi. So when we see it in context with the last verse, the best yogi is the bhakti yogi, then in all circumstances one should be a bhakti yogi. And this is what the Bhagavad Gita always brings us back to, and that Prabhupada is doing that in his purports. And that is that when seen as a whole, the central principle of the Bhagavad Gita, the central teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, is very simple and essential, and that is that we have left Krishna. Ichcha dvesha samutena. We use that verse. The Prabhupada explains is explaining the fall of the jiva. Ichcha dvesha means desire and hate. So somehow or other we get the desire to enjoy separate from Krishna, and simultaneously we hate the service of Krishna. And so samutena, from that arises the delusion of duality, dvandva mohena bharata. But that dvandva moha also does something. What it does is completely cover our understanding of who we really are and keeps us absorbed in this material energy, life after life, and species after species. Sarva bhutani samoham. In this, every living entity who's here, which includes us, is thus completely bewildered. Sammoham. Every syllable counts. Moham is bewilderment. Sam means completely, like sun kirtan. Total kirtan, right? Sarge yanti parantapa. And the Prabhupada takes this phrase to mean in this way we come into the creation. Sarga is the creation, this creation. Yanti we come. So how do we get out? The problem is that who really even knows that there's another realm of existence? This is the deep delusion that we're in, is that we think this is all there is. And it works that way in every species of life. We're human beings now. We can reflect on these things and think philosophically. But still, if we don't come in contact with this philosophy as taught and as transmitted in purely by a pure devotee, we remain in darkness. We may go off into this philosophical thing or that philosophical thing. There's a million different ways of staying in illusion without proper guidance. So. Just the revelation, just the acceptance that this is not the way our life is supposed to be. In other words, oftentimes, as we may have found in our own lives, that our interest in Krishna consciousness arises and is kept burning when we're in trouble in the material world. We're frustrated somehow in our life. There's some crisis. Otherwise, if we thought everything was going swimmingly, why would we take up this asceticism? So that is our great fortune, to become interested in the absolute truth. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. The Bhagavatam is the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, and the second sutra is repeated in the first verse of the Bhagavatam. Janma Yasya Yataha. What it says? Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now that you're a human being, inquire into the absolute truth. Don't waste your time in all the relative things. Now you have an opportunity to get out. It's an urgent message. And what is that absolute truth? That which from everything comes. That which is the source of everything, including us. Now the source can't have anything less than the result, right? This is just logic. If you look at all the causes of this building, right, you can trace them all back to something. In other words, all right, where did these pillars come from, this thing? All right, so there was cement and this and that, or somehow they built it. And the painted was there, there's paint, and there's a painter, So there's a series of conscious beings, and there's all of these materials are put together. Everything's accounted for. You can't have anything in the building that wasn't there in the cause, right? So since we are conscious living beings with likes and dislikes and all of these different emotions, we're the creation, then the creator, the source, has to have personality. Because personality is superior to impersonality. A little dog is superior to a rock. He's got, he doesn't have all that much going on, but he's an individual, likes, dislikes, this and that, love, rudimentary. So the original must have everything that's there in the result. And also much more we learn, but at least as much. So anyway, logically, therefore our perfection, if we're really interested, and this is what's so exciting about Krishna consciousness when I first came in touch. Oh, this is, they claim that this is the way to achieve perfection in life. There's no compromise with imperfection. So many philosophies. Well, that's just the way it is. You have to learn to, this life is temporary, and there's no life after death. So this is how you can enjoy as much as possible before you die, or whatever. Some speculation and so many different things. But where do you find this is how you can end death, and regain your immortality? This is how you can taste a happiness that you've never imagined, and what doesn't end. I was just working on this verse. Contemplating it. We read it in chapter 5, one of my favorites. Yehi sang sparjaja bhoga dukkha yonai evate. That the pleasures that are due to contact of the senses with their objects are the sources of misery, and they're temporary. These pleasures are not only sources of misery, but they're temporary. And therefore the wise do not delight in them. Well, the only way that they can delight in them is if there's another source of pleasure. The whole idea is that, yes, and that's in the previous verse, Bayasparsheshu asaktatma vindityatmana yat sukham sabbrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashrute. Very nice verse. Bayasparsheshu. This is the sparsha, means the senses touching their objects, the eyes touching the beautiful things to see, the taste touching the tongue touching the taste. There's a contact. That's how you experience it. So all those pleasures that come, and there's pleasure, maybe fleeting pleasure, but there's undoubtedly some pleasure to be found in these sensations. Asaktatma, the yogi, the realized soul, is not interested in those. Well, asaktatma, vindityatmani yat sukham. Why? Because he gives up that pleasure for the atmani sukham, the pleasure of the self, contacting the Supreme Self, right? But here it is, atmani yat sukham. Sab Brahma Yoga Yuktatma, linked up to Brahman, Supreme Brahman, Krishna. Brahma Yoga Yuktatma, Yukta means linked yoga. The soul linked to the Supreme Brahman. Sukham akshayam ashnute. He enjoys unbroken happiness, which you can't find in this material world. So that's just that's the verse in the middle of the 5th chapter. But it gives a hint of the alternative. It's a call to the conditioned soul. Don't reconcile yourself. Don't sell yourself short that this is all there is, And I can see it's temporary. Well, let me put that out of my mind. That I'm going to get older, and that I won't be able to enjoy, and that these intense enjoyments that I'm experiencing, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, whatever you want to, that more or less in that categories. I know that that's going to burn me out, and But the heck with the future. This is a mode of ignorance. But there's a mentality like that. What's the point of postponing? I might as well enjoy now. That was, when I was growing up, that was prominent. Hedonism. But that's self-defeating. You're ensuring tons of misery in your life. Why not strive for that state? As Krishna says, be a yogi. Self-control, yam, niyama, that we have to accept that. The yama is the don'ts. Niyama is the do's. The moral don'ts and do's. If you can't, those are the first two in any yoga system. If you can't stop, engaging in these 4 sinful principles, you can't advance in bhakti yoga or any yoga. So,
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Welcome.
Thank you.
You have a question?
Yes, I do. Can I ask?
All right, just give me a few minutes and wind up, and then I'll ask.
Okay, no worries. Yes. Thank you.
So just to finish my thought, this chapter is ending like a big crescendo here. He's summarizing these last 2 verses that tapasya is necessary, but just to be a tapasvi is not good enough. Just to be a jnana is necessary, but to be a jnani, to have your main focus, is not necessary. It's a means. It's part of bhakti yoga. And karma, you have to act. We're doing actions all day. But karma yoga, just to sacrifice for some material, go to heaven or whatever that is, that's not good enough. It's certainly better than gross sinful activity, but we have to graduate from that and integrate those parts of karma yoga that are pertinent. We're working for Krishna and we're sacrificing the results for him, fine. But the motive is not to get something material. The motive is to cultivate our affection for Krishna. And the sacrifice, therefore, japa jagya. Of all jagyas, Krishna says in the 10th chapter, I am japa. Did you know that? Yajnanam japa yagyosmi. So when our focus is proper and we're seeing it, so therefore be a yogi. Right? Better than the tapasvi is the yogi, better than the jnani is the yogi, better than the karmi is the yogi. Therefore be a yogi. And the yoga will incorporate some of these elements. Certainly the yogi was a tapasvi, he's austere, but under guidance, appropriately incorporating all these elements, but the goal is ultimately bhakti. And then everything else follows naturally. So that's what he's saying in the last. The best yogi is one who's always thinking within his heart, with great faith and bhajate, and serving me with love and devotion. Okay, Dhanavaru, is that you?
Yes, Prabhu,
Okay.
thank you.
Oh, speak slowly so I can understand. You have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. One question, I have two questions. One is, you said Bhagavatam is the
Natural commentary.
commentary of Vedanta Sutra.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Now, yeah, that's not me saying it. I mean, I'm just quoting it from all our acharyas.
No, I know. I mean,
Okay.
that's what I'm.
Okay.
Yeah, So Vedanta Sutra is Vedas, end of Vedas, like Anta at the end of. That's
Yeah.
called Vedanta Sutra.
Vedanta Sutra is written by Vyasadeva, and it encompasses the essence of all the philosophy, the ultimate philosophy gleaned from all the Vedic writings. That's what Veda Anta, the end of all knowledge, the culmination of all knowledge, which according to Prabhupada's name is Bhakti. The whole thing ends Bhakti Vedanta. It culminates in Bhakti. But yes, it is the essence of.
So out of four Vedas, the Vedanta. I'm trying to understand. I've heard this term, but I never understood. So he compiled four Vedas in the Vedanta Sutra. Is that what you?
It doesn't compile the four Vedas in the. It's not like that. It's that the four Vedas and the Upanishads and the Puranas and all of the other Vedic writings, they all contain philosophies, and it's not that they don't repeat some of the philosophy. It's all there, but the essence is boiled down in the Vedanta Sutra. Sutra means, you know what a sutra is. It's a thread or it's an aphorism,
Yes.
right? So it's very compact. It's very they're not whole verses. Like we have all these. Some of them are very long. In the Bhagavatam you see long, even prose passages. So, but the Vedanta Sutra, it's all these little sutras. Tato Brahma Jigyasa. What is that? 4 or 5 words. Janma Yasya Yataha. That's the second one. They go on like that. So it needs commentary in order to unpack it. And that commentary, famously, Shankaracharya gave his impersonal commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. He interpreted in such a way that the conclusion is that the Supreme Brahman is impersonal, just no nirvishesh, no qualities, no varieties, just pure consciousness. So that was, there's a certain history why that. He's an expansion of Lord Shiva. He was ordered to do it by Krishna, but that's a long story. But the history of Vaishnavism is in India. A lot of it is in the last 2,000 years, is 1,500 years, say, combating this Mayavad interpretation of Vedanta Sutra, and showing that the actual meaning of Vedanta Sutra is bhakti. Now, Lord Chaitanya, and when he started his Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, which is part of the role in the larger Madhva Sampradaya or the Brahma Sampradaya, he didn't write a commentary, which is commonly what is done when for the leader of each Sampradaya. Madhva had written one already, but Lord Chaitanya declared, he said, no, the natural commentary is the Srimad Bhagavatam itself, because it was written after the Vedanta Sutra, and it was written by the same author. And it's even mentioned in the text of the Bhagavatam that it's a commentary on Brahma Sutra. And that's why you find the same themes in the Bhagavatam. Second verse. First verse, first words, Janmad Yasya Yataha. It goes on. Janma jasya yaton vayada tatatashtarteshtu bhigyasura. But that Janma jasya yataha is the definition of Brahman that's given in the second sutra of the Vedanta Sutra. And that Brahman is what we're supposed to search after, right? Atato Brahma Jigyasa. You should be inquisitive about what Brahman is. And we'll give you a hint, the second sutra. Atato Janma Jasya. It's that from which everything comes. But that doesn't say is it a person or not a person. So there's a whole development. But the Bhagavatam expands and makes it very explicit that source of everything, the supreme absolute truth, which is the definition of what we're looking for, is a person, and that person is Krishna, and is Vasudeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Do you understand? I mean,
yes, Prabhu,
Prabhupada's name.
very much.
Prabhupada's name answers all the questions. What's the Vedanta? Bhakti. Bhakti is the end of all knowledge. Bhakti Vedanta. Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, that's fine. So
is it okay?
Sorry.
Yeah, all the Vedas, all of that, it came so much philosophy.
All the Vedas.
Are we okay? All right.
Yes, can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes, I didn't hear. There was silence there. Do you have more?
Okay, I thought somebody was talking.
No, we're okay. All right.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
the four Vedas, after four Vedas, we don't have to study Vedas because we cannot in this age. So, if we study Bhagavatam, then we are good.
Yes,
we don't need
yes. Bhagavatam is all you need. Famously, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, if all the books in the world are destroyed but the Bhagavatam remains, we're fine. There's no loss. Because
Thank you so much.
it says right in the Bhagavatam, second verse, it says, Srimad Bhagavate Mahamanukate King Vaparayar Ishvara Sadyo Ridjavadujate Tukatabishu Shushabhistakshanat. This Srimad Bhagavatam, it's very, very important verse, the second verse, even more quoted and focused on than the first verse. Because it glorifies the Bhagavatam. The whole point, in the beginning of every book, of our great books, you'll find Mangalacharan. These are auspicious verses at the beginning, which have certain function. And one of them is to define the subject matter of the book. That makes sense. Just like a table of contents. And glorify the book and induce you to read it. So here's what it says about the Bhagavatam. First of it, Dharma project kaitavo tra. The word tra means atra. Here in the Bhagavatam, it appears 3 times in this verse. So here in the Bhagavatam, you won't find any of this cheating dharma. Cheating dharma is dharma that's engaged in for personal motivation. You see, with a material motive. We engage in dharma, but the dharma, as explained in the second chapter of the book, is that which leads to pure bhakti. Savai pungsang paro dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje. What's the quality of that bhakti? Haituki apratayata. It has no material motivation and it doesn't stop. Then you expand it to 24 hours of your day. That's what real dharma leads to. And yatma supersediti. And that way alone, the soul can be fully satisfied. You see? So that's the first statement. No cheating dharmas. You're not going to see any compromise here with karma kanda and all that. No. There's purely unmotivated, uninterrupted bhakti, love for Krishna. So that's the first statement. Dharma projita kaitavotra, paramoni matsaranam satam vejam. It is understood by those who are not envious. In other words, not everyone is eligible to really understand the Bhagavatam. Now that doesn't mean we shouldn't distribute it as far as wide as possible. But because one can become inspired to take up bhakti, But to really relish it and become get to fully benefit, one has to be pure in heart, become pure in heart. Vedam. What does it give? Vastava vastu. Vastava vastu means the thing in it, the ultimate substance in the world. The Brahman is reality, the foundation of reality. God, Krishna. Vastava vastu atu. Shivadam. It gives all good fortune, those who relish it, who study it. Tapatrayon mulanam. Tapatraya. You've heard of the threefold miseries, Bhakta Glenn? Okay. The ones caused by our own body and mind, the one caused by other living beings, and the one caused by the devas, the acts of God, as they say in the insurance policy. You're insured for everything but an act of God. Usually. So, but here, tapatrayon mulanam, it uproots the threefold miseries. In other words, you may go through them, but they won't mean much to you because you're so absorbed. You're thinking of Krishna. You can even transcend the greatest difficulty. It's right in this chapter we read. So, Srimad Bhagavate, it's called the Srimad Bhagavatam, the very beautiful treatise about Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of God. Mahamuni Krite, it was written by the great Muni Vyasadeva in his maturity. Prabhupada says, you look up, in other words, the last book he wrote. King Vaparaya, what do you need anything else? Because Ishwarak Sadyorid Jabarujyatetra, that one who is hearing this should be with great attention and focus and gets absorbed in hearing, like Pramarish Burkett, has the Supreme Lord manifest in his heart. In other words, you realize the God in your heart, Krishna. Sadyo means quickly. Sadyo Ridjavarujyatetra Shushubi Takshanat, after a very short time one will realize God. So what do you need some other book for? You can realize God by reading Bhagavatam. So I thought I'd go through that because that answers what the book is. What were you going to ask?
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna, and thank you for coming in this cold weather, Prabhu. Very nice.
Well, I didn't have to go very far, but thanks.
But still, it's so windy.
Well, this is, I've been doing it for 30 years, so why stop now? Go ahead.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. And other question.
Hold on, we have another question here. Hold on, go ahead. There's also a passage, there's a verse in there that's described that it is, and also, anyway, there's other statements and analysis of how this is the final, Vedic literature that culminates. I have to look it up. Yeah, but we'll find it for you. Okay, we have a few minutes. Let's go on. Well, we finished the chapter, so just further exploring this wonderful purport. Prabhupada points to the fact that the word bhajate is here, and I think that's the first time it appears in the chapter, in the last verse. Because bhajan is the same root for bhakti, you see, and the idea is that serving with love and devotion is beyond worship. Worship oftentimes has a material motive. Just like we have our old friend Ganesh here, and oftentimes people are very, very, fervently worship Ganesh. Please make my business a success, right? So that's a kind of worship. And we just had this election, and it's a kind of worship. People went through great austerities. They stand in line for a long time, and often give donations and then go through so much to vote, which is a kind of worship. Why? Because they think, this person that we're voting for is going to save us from that person. So that's a kind of worship, and it can be done for all kinds of motives. Now we also worship Krishna, we worship but more important is the willingness to serve selflessly, without any material motive. We're worshiping the deity, we're bowing down, and we're doing it for their pleasure, not for us. And because we're part and parcel of Krishna, when we are focused on giving him pleasure, then we get more, the pleasure of the soul, the reservoir of pleasure. And it's not dependent on the senses. We can do with the senses, but it's really dependent just on the soul and connection. So therefore, we can get to the point where it's endless, where it's if we work at it. So all that comes from here. Then Prabhupada, he quotes this verse from the 11th canto about how one will fall down if he's not properly engaged. Bhajanti, again, one could be thoroughly condemned if he doesn't worship Krishna. And let's see. And Prabhupada has this nice paragraph here on page 301, where he's describing all these attractive features of Krishna: the beautiful lotus-like face, the brilliant jewels, his gorgeous luster. These are things that attract one to get attached. To appreciate the beauty of the Lord, and there's so much in that regard. Like I was just looking into the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. There's a section there describing the 64 qualities of Krishna. And each quality, there's a verse describing how we manifest that quality. Now, this is how you can become attracted to someone. When you hear about their beautiful quality. One of Krishna's qualities in certain contexts, he's very, Riya, kind of shy. You don't think of Krishna as shy, but he manifests that in certain pastimes, So all these qualities you read about, they're all attractive in how he manifests them in the different pastimes. And you can become attracted. That's the whole idea, to become attracted, so that you'll want to please that person, And if you get a little bit of that taste, then that's way beyond any of this impersonal yoga or anything like that. And so here we have, Rupa Goswami penned so many of these beautiful shlokas. Like one of them, I'll give you an example. Mother Yashoda, her love is so intense, all-encompassing, and regarding Krishna as a little child, So here's a verse. It's Kronata Kanaka Kinkani Kalapam. Smita Mukha Mudjula Lasika. You know this one a little bit, right? No. You've heard it. Kronata Kanaka Kinkani Kalapam. Smita Mukha Mudjula Nasika Gramuktam. Kadadutandavanita Pindamangve Tanayamavesha Nananda Patni. Now just that word at the end is such an attractive thing. This aesthetics is itself an attractive feature, and there's so much of it is in these shlokas. Nananda Nanda Patni. Now what does that mean? So Nanda Patni is a name for Yashoda, the wife of Nanda. But Nananda is a word that means delights. You see, like Nanda Nandana, the delight of Nanda. It's a name for Krishna, because for any civilized, civilization of human beings, the children are the source of so much happiness, the exchange of love. So this verse says, Kwanita Kanika Kinka Nikalapam, that his golden waist belt, now he's just a little baby, and all he has is these bells on his waist, and pearl on his nose. That's all he's wearing. So he's crawling, and the golden waist bells are tinkling very sweetly. Kwanita Kanika is golden. Kwanita is this tinkling sweet. Kinkani, that's the waist belt. Kalapam, the series of waist bells. What is he doing? Kwanita Kanika Kinkanama Smita Mukham, his face is smiling. He's smiling at his mother. Ujjvala Nasika, there's an effulgent pearl affixed to the tip of his nose, and in his hand, he's holding in his hand Kadadutta Navanitam Pindam. Navanita Pindam means a ball of fresh butter ball. Agre Taniyam. So before the mother, he's crawling, he's appearing like this. Her son, Taniyam. Agre Taniyam. Smita Mukam Nasakada Muktam Kadadutta Pindam Agre Taniyam Aveksha. She sees him in this aspect. He's crawling toward her, and she's smiling and Tanvekshan Nananda Nanda Patni, and delighting them. That's a great meditation, and one can, one's heart can become softened by visualizing that and seeing that, and chanting Hare Krishna. So that book is filled with that. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It gives the principles of bhakti and the benefits of bhakti, and all these different things, and then it gives the rules and regulations. And here's the method and the goal is given. It's a very essential book, Prabhupada translated. So this is where we have this gift that Srila Prabhupada gave us. Not only the books, but the personification of the book in himself, and his advanced devotees, and the facilities, the temples, and the everything, and the instructions. Everything is there before us. We just need to take it and become serious about kicking out the impediments and surrendering. So we will embark on chapter 7 tomorrow, beginning of the middle 6 chapters, which is all about devotional service and bhakti. Thank you very much for your attention. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.